Next on Eternal Durdles, we have Rob Wilson from Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me this week, Rob Wilson. Rob, how are you, man?
Doing well. Appreciate you having me. Happy to be here.
So, for the folks that don't know, Rob, you run Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy, which is a pretty big tournament out in the Midwest. Tell us a little bit about the event.
Yeah, so it's really just kind of started as this grassroots organic thing. I mean, I ran the first BCDL in 2019, and before that, we were playing in my house. So kind of the story was, we didn't have a place to do F&M Legacy because at that point, Modern was, still going strong. Standard hadn't been killed off by Arena yet, and same thing with Paper Limited. So most F&Ms had those three events going, and there just wasn't a place for us. So I kind of told our Legacy group, like, hey, come to my house. I've got space. We can just have Legacy here. And people were like, it's kind of lame.
Legacy at home.
Like, well, how about I make Buffalo Chicken Dip? And people were like, oh, that's awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, for weeks, people just came over and I'd make Buffalo Chicken Dip and we'd play Legacy. And, it kind of eventually grew and grew to a point where my wife was finally like, you guys got too many people. You got to go somewhere else. Like when we're getting 16 or so people or more for, F&M in my house, it was kind of, it was a lot.
Yeah. It gets unwieldy after a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really good problem to have. So what I decided was like, well, why don't I see if I can get space at one of the LGSs on like a Saturday? I'll collect some money from people. I'll make Buffalo Chicken Dip and I'll buy like duels and Force of Wills and other staples, and we'll just do them as prizes and we'll run it that way. And that's kind of how it was born. And, it's been growing ever since, and it's fantastic. I mean, the outpouring of support from the community has been nothing short of amazing. And I don't make any money off these events. Last year it actually ran at a loss. So, I try to run them as about break even as I can. That way I'm putting the maximum value possible back to the players, back to the event. If I need equipment or something, I'll save some cash or whatever, but to just really give it back to the players just for the love of the format and Eternal Magic.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think it's really cool that one of the things that's been a center of it the entire time is the food, because that's really one of the things that sort of separates this from like going to a Grand Prix or a Magic Con or something like that, is that you guys supply the food.
Yeah, so I run two kinds of events. Community events, which are usually like 64 player cap at an LGS, and then opens, which are kind of larger ones, and we'll talk about that later. But the community events, I still make the Buffalo Chicken Dip at home the night before, go to Costco, get everything, just like I've been doing for the past, 4 or 5 years at this point.
I feel like we should have like the recipe like pop up or something.
Yeah, I'll share the recipe. If anyone wants it, just tweet
in the comments, guys.
Yeah, just tweet at me. I mean,
recipe in the description.
And I've given it to people because I want to share like that piece of it, that aspect that kind of started it all for us with other people. And I've had over the years quite a few people reach out and say like, hey, we saw what you're doing and now we do this thing. I played in Benucci's webcam league and I ran into someone from Sweden.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, yeah, we do. Like, we kind of took your idea and we do it twice a year. They said for around Christmas time, they do mulled wine. Right.
Oh,
I know.
So good.
And then in the summer they have a barbecue and they just get together and play Legacy. And it's this big thing for them. And that's awesome. And I've had a few other groups in the US and kind of smaller tell me they do the same. And it's cool to hear that, that vibe is catching on and people are really digging it. And, the gathering is just kind of the secret sauce.
Yeah, the gathering is the secret sauce for sure. Yo, shout out to also mulled wine season coming back into play. That's always good.
Yeah, I thought that was so unique. I'm like, I don't know if I could get away with that in the US,
Yeah,
But
it's always tough. I've only played at a couple of places that like also allow alcohol that are like, DCI sanctioned, as it were. And it's always it's always like, hey, everybody don't say anything, like but when we do right before I left Brooklyn, one of the last events that I helped run was the New York group would get everybody together at like a local bar or whatever, and we were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally I was like, hey, like I used to work at this beer hall, and we just took over the beer hall on like a Saturday afternoon in the middle of like, I want to say it was like November or something, you know, and they had these big long tables. So they were just like, yeah, whatever. Like, as long as you guys are buying beer, we don't care what you do, you know?
and that's kind of like with so the other kind of event I do is are open events, which are larger. So I've partnered with Brewdog, which is
Okay.
a Scottish company, and their U.S. production facility is just outside of Columbus. So they have their brewing facility there that they ship all over the U.S. And they also have a restaurant, an event space, and a hotel. And it's just an amazing a spot to be at. And there's enough room that you can easily run 128 player event. You can, there's alcohol for purchase, plenty of space like to do commentary, stream setup.
That's awesome.
And it's just a great campus. I mean, there's a huge patio off the restaurant that people can hang out in, a dog park. The hotel rooms are awesome. They're just kind of like these fun modern rooms with beer fridges, and it's just a great vibe and a good time and a very unique experience, completely different than anything you'll get somewhere else. And for the value that we get for what we're paying, like it just kind of can't be beat. I mean, especially looking at the hotel conference room kind of thing. Those things are fine. They serve a purpose, but I also play old school.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take kind of that vibe, that community aspect, and bring it to Legacy. And that's kind of how, I kind of started doing this, and what I was thinking about when we originally got off the ground. And, it's really resonated with people, and we've grown every year, and it's incredible.
Yeah. So this all takes place in Ohio. Obviously, you said Columbus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
are you
we're
originally from Ohio?
So it's kind of a weird story where we lived in Columbus. My family moved to Texas. So they're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But
Okay.
I stayed here, went to undergrad, then I went to law school, and been here ever since. And it just seemed like kind of a natural place. We're very fortunate in Central Ohio to be within 3 hours of a lot of big cities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And also have a strong Magic presence for every format, not just modern or limited or EDH, but we also have old school. There's a vintage group, and we also have legacy. So whatever you want to play, you can do it here. I mean, we even have some pre-modern people.
Yeah, Ohio is sort of like the nexus for Magic the Gathering. It's sort of always been that way. I'm from Dayton, Ohio originally. Little known fact about me, because I've moved so many places. But back when we used to go to like Maverick Comics back in the day, and we used to play in the donut shop right next to the comic shop. This was wild. So I was like 14 or 15 years old, and my mom would drop me off at the donut shop next to the comic store at midnight on a Wednesday. It's the only time they played. And from midnight to 4 a.m., all these people, obviously at the time, guys much older than me, were all hanging out in this donut shop next door because they were like open to bake, and they were just like, yeah, you can play here. It's whatever. And like my mom would just drop me off there and then like pick me up at like 5 a.m. Everyone else was like, we're going to Steak and Shake later on. We're going to start playing Magic at Steak and Shake. But yeah, Ohio's a really great place to play Magic because there's just such a vast community of players. It's also where the first extended tournament took place at.
I did not
in
know
Cuyahoga Falls.
Yeah, I mean, it's being a place where we have multiple, like kind of the big 3 cities in Ohio. They're all capable of hosting large events, whether it's SCG, Eternal Weekend, NRG, like even the GPs when they're around. So it makes it very convenient and centrally located. Columbus Airport is also pretty convenient.
Yeah.
And
It's a
then
nice
if you
hub.
haven't been to the Columbus Convention Center in the past few years, that downtown area has really exploded, and there's a lot of great hotels and like food options, like walking distance, like quick enough that you can go in between rounds. Like
Nice.
Everyone hears about the North Market, which
Yeah.
is fantastic, but there are a lot of other great food places as well. If you're ever considering traveling to Ohio or for a BCDL event, I actually have a guide that I've given to some out of town people of like, here are some food recommendations. Here are like some spots to check out for like whatever you're into. Like I had a group of people come from New Hampshire, and I was like, here, I'll tell you where to stay, where we're going to be. I'll give you a map, like, LGSs, restaurants, bars. Like, these are some recommendations. So if anyone ever needs that for Columbus, Ohio, if you're coming for an event, hit me up. Always happy to help out.
Yeah, it's always great to get like a spot where it's you have all the conveniences that like a large city would have. Philly's great for that too. Where like if you go to a convention in Philly, if you're in Philly proper, you're right next to the Reading Terminal Market. It's like the best place to eat. But whenever there's like food and accommodations, great places to hang out on top of that, that's what makes or breaks some of these larger events. I'm going to Vegas at the end of the month, and like one of my biggest worries is like, what am I going to do outside of like just being in Vegas? I don't want to go gamble, I don't lose my shirt after paying all this money to go play Magic, So it's like knowing all the local areas is a huge boon too.
So is this your first time in Vegas?
Second time in Vegas, actually. I went to the Modern Masters 1 Grand Prix. I won a Grand Prix trial and was like, all right, I'll do it. And I sat next to Bob Meyer and opened a Dark Confidant. And I was like, hey, man, you going to sign this? And he was like, yeah, I'll sign it. Just like, let me finish my deck. And he like drew a little guy in there. Yeah. It was pretty great. It was a really cool experience as far as like, I had just gotten back into the game maybe like about a little less than a year prior. So it was like one of my really big first big Magic events. And I think at the time that was the biggest Magic event. I was just starting to play Legacy because I had Merfolk on me. So I was playing I think I won an event and I won like a Bayou or something, playing against like Countertop at the end of that round.
I mean, Vegas is great because it can be anything you want it to be. I mean, if you want to do like the club, the pool, gamble, like obviously it's there, but you can also see shows. There are a lot of great shows. There's, world-class eating there. You can do some touristy stuff like the Grand Canyon. I've also like, I have two kids. So if you're looking for the kids stuff, there's also a great children's museum. Like you can do helicopter tours. I mean, anything you want to do, Vegas.
I suppose they're there to accommodate the tourist, right?
Yeah, it's very tourist friendly.
Speaking of tourists, it would be really great for Buffalo Chicken Dip is doing it at Kings Island.
I don't know if they have event space at Kings
Island.
No,
I mean they kind of do, but like it would. I feel like they used to do that in the 90s. They used to do stuff like that in the 90s where they're just like, we're at Disney World playing Magic the Gathering, and you're like, why?
Yeah, because you spend all your time like there. I've kind of been looking like I'm very willing to listen to community feedback, and if people want it and I hear it enough, and the idea is feasible, like, I'll do it. I mean, that's kind of how I've shaped a lot of what I've done over the years is by just listening to people. Like, what do you want? And some of the things I've gotten, there are two things I've gotten pretty regularly. One, do something outside of Ohio. And two, what other venues can you do besides an LGS? I mean, the Brewdog was kind of my first attempt last year at doing that. And I've kind of been looking at some alternate places. as well, like some other ideas. Like there's also a casino in Columbus, so you know we might.
I mean, they've
we
got
might try
the
that.
space for cards. Obviously, we know that.
Yeah, right. And it's like it's a nice enough casino, and it's big enough that they probably have enough space. And
Yeah.
if I tell them like, hey, you know, 60 to 100, 20, 30, 40 sums.
Yeah, they're gonna
want to
gamble.
come to their come.
Some number
They'll
of
be
them
like,
are gonna
yes,
be playing
please.
poker. You know.
And they've got hotel accommodations on site and restaurants and
Perfect.
You know, so maybe that's an option. But if anyone ever has feedback, I love it. I love hearing what people like or don't like.
Phil just texted me. We have like I feel like this is like on the news. Like it's like here's a you know incoming report from Phil. Phil says, would he ever consider abolishing the 5 additional turns for his event or making draws worth 0 points to disincentivize intentional draws?
So I've actually had this discussion with people before. If I could do one thing, it would be to change draws to 0 points, which basically solves the problem that Phil kind of brought up in just a quicker fashion. Because the intentional draw is such an anticlimactic thing.
Yeah.
Like from every standpoint, from the viewer, from competitive, from sponsorship. It's just like you get to this culmination of tension and playing for something. And we're like, yeah, we're just gonna skip this one. It doesn't.
It is
matter.
the victory formation of Magic the Gathering for sure. Where you're just like, why does this happen?
The reason I'm not doing it is once you deviate from the tournament rules, like the Magic official rules, you're something else.
Yeah.
And like people have asked me over the years, like, would you consider, you know, like Legacy with a different ban list or Heritage or whatever? I'm like, that's not Legacy. Like once you start messing with anything, it's no longer Legacy. So
that's always been my biggest trepidation with any of this stuff. Especially like, you know, I have friends that were like, hey, we're gonna meet up. Let's do Legacy, but like no, you know, it was like Heritage. And I was just like, I don't have time to build a deck for that, man. Like I just want to hang out and play, you know, like I can bring the decks I have. You know, like and the issue with that is like once you deviate from the tournament rules on top of that, there's always gonna be someone who shows up that doesn't have any clue what's going on. They just showed up to play, you know, Legacy or whatnot, and then they're playing with Urza Sagas or something like that, and you're like, I'm sorry, you can't do that, and it's just a whole nightmare of logistics and accommodating this one guy who, like, you know, it's just it is a lot.
Yeah, I see why people want to do these things, and believe me, like I said, if it's the one thing about Magic I would change if I could, but you know, it's kind of the system we're in to keep everyone on equal footing and play Legacy as everyone knows it. I mean, like whether it's here in the US, I went to GP Atlanta and I was playing against a player from Japan that spoke 0 English, and we were able to have a complete game. I understood him, he understood me, and we couldn't understand a word.
Yeah,
you know, and
it's one of the great things about the game. It's a universal language, really. You know.
Yeah,
I had the same experience when I went to Lisbon in 2013, and I sat down at a table and I played Magic against every single person there. Many of them spoke English. Several didn't. Several didn't speak it great. You know, and I obviously don't speak Portuguese. So you know, it was just wild to see that like you could sit down with somebody, have almost nothing in common with them aside from the fact that you both know how to play Magic, and there you go. You're playing Magic.
And there are lots of instances like that with Magic, right? I mean, I've met a lot of great people over the years that I just would probably never run into or interact with if not for Magic. So it really just brings people together in a way that, you know, very few things do. And especially as, you know, as adults, as, you know, a lot of us are, you know, maybe in our 30s or 40s, have kids. It's harder to make friends.
Yeah.
Like just legitimately. And this having, like our local vintage group, there's some guys in there that are in their 50s that still talk and hang out. And like we all get together a few times a year. And like Magic has been that common thread. And some of the guys that are that old have been playing since college when they were at Ohio State in the 90s. And
Yeah.
like, that's awesome.
Do you use Moxfield at all? Or know of Moxfield?
I know of Moxfield.
Yeah.
I've heard good things. I just haven't used it.
So what's great about those guys in this context is those are the guys I grew up playing Magic with in their basement, like at like my friend's mom's house. Like, and that's that was 1995. So like the adult friends thing, like those are some of the few friends that I still keep in contact with from like growing up. Eternal Dirtles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned. But yeah, like, Phil is a perfect example. Me and Phil have almost nothing in common. He's into weightlifting and bodybuilding and stuff. He works for a company that like does all that stuff. I was a bartender. Like, sure, that's sort of universal, but like a photographer, it's a realm I would have never met anybody outside of that world, really. And you got guys like Phil who, like, I'm just like, we're the best of friends. And it's like, people that you would only ever meet if you're sitting across from them at a tournament,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, one of the things that makes Magic special. And, we've been very fortunate with BCDL to just have a great community of people that are there to play to win, but play to have fun.
Yeah, it's a gentleman's game. I feel like that's one of the great things about Legacy.
Yeah, no one's trying to get to the Pro Tour here. We're not. Like, I used to grind and play a lot of competitive Modern, and just some of the people you'd run into.
Oh, dude,
it's garbage.
No, I know. It's funny that you mentioned the Pro Tour thing, because we have which went live today. This will probably go live on Thursday, so we're talking on Tuesday night. We had Reed Duke on this week, and I was so nervous about the episode going up. Last night, I had a dream about making the Pro Tour, a literal Pro Tour dream. And I was talking to Phil about it, and I was like, dude, I haven't even tried to care about getting on the Pro Tour for like at least 5 or 6 years. Like, it wasn't a thought in my mind. Just because I was talking to somebody about it, I had a dream that like I made it somehow. I don't even know how I qualified. But we were talking about it. Was like, you had a literal Pro Tour dream. But yeah, the competitive thing is wild because if you look at the great Magic players, the really good ones, not the grinders per se, but the really good Magic players, they're not there corner casing people. They're just playing solid Magic through and through. They're sticking to the rules. They're playing the game. They're not doing things that like, oh, I got you on like a technicality, or like, Judge, I need to call this guy because he didn't like say this specific thing, and so when you play Legacy, you get more of that normal player that's like on the same level, community wise as a pro, where they're just like, look, I'm a full adult. I have a reputation, as a person, and I don't want to ruin it by being a jerk to people, now. Sure, get your win if you need to get it, like do everything within the rules to get the win. But when you see those guys at tournaments that are doing that kind of weird stuff, it's always bothersome. But it's nice to know that there's a lot less of that in Legacy.
Yeah, and Reed Duke is like I don't just say this because you just had him on, but he's like the classic case of like the best way to communicate when you're playing. Because if you want, you can go back and watch like GP Reed Duke and listen to how he communicates with players. Everything is very clear. You could tell he thinks through his plays, what he's doing. And it's just such a great model to model your game afterwards, just in the way he conducts himself.
Yeah.
And I think you see a lot more of that, to your point, in Legacy, which is fantastic. I just see so many people that just have a great time, whether they win or lose. I mean, we'll have people that O2 drop and hang out the entire tournament.
Yeah.
And like finish it out or just root on their buddies because like they genuinely want to be there instead of like, well, I'm just grinding for something. I'm out of top 8 contention. I'm I'm out of here. Like, people are choosing to stay because, the atmosphere is,
it's a place to hang out. Yeah.
Place you want to be at.
Yeah. So when's the next Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy happening?
So we are running our first vintage open this month, 9/30. It's at Brewdog in Westerville. So it's a 4K. The first prize is an unlimited time vault.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
And duels to the rest of top 8, a Volk to second, third, fourth, an Underground C, and then Savannahs to 5 through 8.
And if I'm not mistaken, this is a proxy event, right?
Yeah, this is full proxy. So everything for BCDL allows proxies. Like, one of the other things, kind of the philosophy I wanted to bring to BCDL when I started was let's give everyone a chance to experience this format. And it's been proxy friendly, as long as I've been doing it. And after, it's been like 5 or so years, since I've been doing it, a lot of people, especially around here in Columbus, like the regulars, have been able to build into decks. Like, they started from proxies and they just wanted, I kept having events, so they got invested in the format and they either won or bought into staples, and because it gave them some like peace of mind that they'd be able to use their cards.
Yeah.
And it actually, a lot of people think like, well, proxy events, those probably hurt the shops. Actually, it kind of had a different effect where people were buying these staples or trading them in.
Yeah, I find that the one thing that people forget to talk about when they're talking about proxies on top of that is that it allows you to build a different deck than the one that you may already have non-proxied and play that as an experiment and be like, I guess I'm buying into this now. I really liked it, It just allows for more options.
Yeah, it's very much like play now, pay later.
Yeah.
And it kind of lets you switch decks, try out new things, and it gives you that kind of pure look at the metagame that you kind of get with it with MTGO. And I found our metas are pretty close to MTGO, except that it's very anti-Delver. Delver, I've done 13 events, and Delver has not won a single one.
Wow.
I know.
That's wild.
Yeah, Merit Lage and Painter have been the multiple winners.
I mean, I guess when you can afford to put Drop of Honey onto the board, right?
I don't even know if I'd have to go back and see if Drop of Honey has even been in a winning list, but it might have only been in one.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it.
That's one of those cards that like you look at and you're just like, why is this card expensive? And the answer is because it's not been reprinted. Obviously, Periphery Nodes is the reprint of that card, the white version. But yeah, the whole proxy thing is great because it allows people it allows people new to come into the format. It allows people to experiment. The stakes are so much lower when you get a chance to be like, okay, you know what? I don't have to spend $800 on this card to compete. Now I can go to the tournament. I think that's another big thing that people forget when they're talking about proxies is like once you own the deck, that's fine. But if you want to go to a tournament, you're just opening it up so much to people that like want to experience Legacy at that level even.
Yeah, and kind of the nice thing about coming to these, like I've looked, like I kind of keep a tabs on pretty consistently of like how many people are using proxies, just because for my own curiosity. It's usually somewhere between 80 to 75% of people use real cards. Like, so it's a pretty small percentage overall that are using proxies. And I've also had people that own cards use proxies because they don't want to travel with their real stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the vintage open coming up, like I had high quality playtest cards that like I'm very against counterfeiting. So for our playtest cards that BCDL loans out, and I mean loan, we don't sell them. I'm very against that. But that we loan out, it has a different back.
Yeah.
Says, not for sale, proxy on them, and just, people may not want to travel with their vintage staples. 100% get it. Happy to just hand you like a high quality Black Lotus playtest card that I've got. And, it gives people like peace of mind, because on some level, due to the value of these cards, for some people, they view them as investments. And, I certainly want to be cognizant and respectful of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the interesting things about all this is, so you've got deals with the hotels that are local as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have like a group of partners around me that are kind of willing to take the ride with me and invest in the success.
Nice.
Brewdog has been a fantastic partner. Just like the value that we get there compared to other places, and all the amenities have been great. And they'll, so their boutique hotel has 22 or 23 rooms, and they'll usually give me a block for, a certain period of time. And then, whatever isn't booked, they'll release back to the public. And then, just kind of working with some other places around town, like some of the hotels that are close to some of the shops. We've done deals in the past, but it just kind of depends. And anytime we have something, like I said, I'm willing to play travel agent. You get a very a concierge experience in terms of me helping you out with any logistics you may run into. I mean, I've printed things out for people. I've picked people up from the airport multiple times.
Wow. That is full court service, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a crew coming for the Vintage Open from NYC, and I told Dave Kaplan, it's like, hey, if you guys need me to come get you, hit me up, we'll figure it out. Or I'll help get you back to the airport, so you don't have to wait on an Uber, like if you're up against it on a flight or whatever. Like, we can figure it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's incredibly generous too.
I just, it's just all about having a good time. Like, just showing people,
just get everybody in there.
Yeah, they want to come back, and it's worked. I mean, if you have a great experience, you tend to want to get that experience again. And I think just that level of hospitality and service and really caring about people. And there was a time where, like, even still, like, I'll know most of the people by name that play in the events. I mean, I used to know literally everyone. I could tell you the name of them. Now
they were in your home. You should know them.
Yeah, well, even when the subsequent years we were at LGS's and it was like 64 player events, I would still know everyone. And it's just like getting together with your friends. Everyone knows everyone. It's just that kind of environment. Now it's grown a little bit bigger where I don't exactly know everyone, but if I don't know someone, that just gives me an incentive to go up and introduce myself, like, hey, I'm the guy on the other end of the chicken account, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to come to me. I mean, tell me, like, good, bad, anything you need, I'm here to help you.
Awesome. Well, Rob, so we're gonna have all of the information for the vintage event in the description. Is there anything else that you want people to know before we head out?
Yeah, I'll tease the next regular BCDL Legacy event. I'm looking at 11/18. That's kind of the date I have set aside to.
I remember you telling me about this in chat earlier, and I was like, "It's my anniversary."
I planned it that way purposely.
Well, yeah, of course. Luckily, so I have a little leeway here. I met my wife on the 11th, and we got married on the 18th. 5 years apart, obviously. But so we basically celebrate anniversary week. So maybe I can.
Start the 10th and the 17th. Is that?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I'm getting. I mean, I think between the vintage event and the Legacy one coming up, it'll be great tune-ups for Eternal Weekend. And
yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to be at Eternal Weekend this year. Last year I was not able to go. My wife was.
Oh, you missed out. It was a real good time.
I know. I mean, Card Titan and Nick Costin, his crew, do a fantastic job, and props to them for. I think a lot of people don't understand what goes into organizing and running events, and just like basically I figure out my break even for every event. Like I said, I don't run them to make profit, so it's just basically I am in a hole every time until I'm in that break even.
Yeah.
Like every event I'm say the legacy event, it costs 13 grand to put that on, between prizes, food. We have judges. I'm fortunate enough to have a couple great L2s in the Columbus area that help me run these events. And, I believe in paying them and taking care of as many people as I can, and doing things right. So it's expensive. And, the people ask all the time, how can I help you? How can I help BCDL or other grassroots organizers like you out there? And the answer is the same every time. Show up early, show up often. I mean, the quicker people sign up, the quicker we can get cash in hand to pay for expenses and do cool things. Like I typically scale prizes with attendance. And for the Legacy Open, we ended up with 98 players, and I bumped it up to add another grand in prizes.
Nice.
For the last one. So it ended up being a 98 player 6K. With lunch. So we had, and we're doing something, a similar type of schedule for Vintage, except it's a 4K. But between after round 1 or 2, we had the brewery put out the buffalo chicken dip. After round 3, we took a break for lunch. And then after round 4, we had another round of buffalo chicken dip come out.
Oh man, that's what I love about this, is the scheduled food is you're gonna eat in between round X. You don't have to panic and run out because you had a long match, or you're hungry. Now you have to concede to get out of there so that you could get food. I think it goes above and beyond. I think what a lot of people are expecting for a Magic event, which is really cool. Something I wanted to say as well about your whole dynamic for this stuff, your whole outlook on it is there's a saying be the change you want to see, but for this it's more be the community you want to see, and that's just it's really great. It's pretty much exactly what we're looking for in the Magic community, and specifically in the Legacy community, where there's slightly less support from WotC.
A lot of when I started looking around at the event, people have asked me why'd you start doing this? And I started looking around at the events I wanted to play, and they just didn't exist. All the events were the same, and that's fine. And there's certainly a place for those, and I appreciate them. But I was what do players want? Let's do that. And no one else was. So I was well, I'll do it myself. And just kind of put together a plan for incremental growth and achievable goals to grow and consistently provide a great experience for people. And that's just really kept them coming back. And like I said, I'm always open to ideas. I mean, a lot of these ideas I've gotten over the years were from player feedback. Hey, let's do this for food, or let's try this for lunch, or hey, let's do these locations. I'm starting to look at events for 2024. And the other big thing I get asked about all the time is, when are you going to do a 2-day event? I'm putting it out here because I'm trying to commit myself to it, to hold myself accountable. But
you heard it here first.
2024, I want to do a 2-day event. More details.
It makes it easier for people like me to come out if we know that it's going to be a weekend. It's going to be a weekend of Magic. It's not just flying in and then being okay, I guess I just fly back home on Sunday.
And every once in a while, I put up a Twitter poll, and I really actually do use that feedback. I mean, one of them. So when I increased the prizes for the Legacy Open that we had in July, I put out a Twitter poll hey, I'm going to increase the prizes for 9th through 16th. What would you want to see? And I used that, and I put out one recently, like, hey, if we're doing a 2-day event, what do you want to see? Do you want to see like vintage, 2 days of legacy, CEDH, other, tell me other.
Yeah.
So, not surprisingly, double legacy was the winner of that.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. But,
legacy into legacy. Yeah, of course.
And I'm just always willing to, take a step back, evaluate, see what we could do better. And, I don't think I'm the be all end all of any decisions. And, like, this 2-day event will have double legacy. If
nice,
kind of the plans I'm working on, I can't really announce, or say too much yet, because there's still a lot of discussions going on, but there will be double legacy.
That's awesome.
So I can at least tease that much for it.
So, Rob, where can people find out more about Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy? Twitter and stuff like that. Where do we find all that?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at BCD Legacy, on Facebook at Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy, on Discords. My handle is RH Will. It's also RH Will and MTGO. I'm a pretty easy to find person, especially with an event coming up. You can find me tweeting out contests or just any mentions, especially right now that mention vintage.
Yeah.
So, just because these events are very close to a loss until I climb out of that hole, I mean, I just kind of have to be proactive and in terms of getting the word out and providing an experience that people want to come to, so I don't get killed, and so I can continue running these events. But,
awesome.
Yeah, basically anywhere you could find me at Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy, BCD Legacy on Twitter.
Awesome. And we'll have all those links in the description below as well.
At events, I love it. Come say hi. Come talk. Always happy to accommodate, tell you anything I can, and I'm just a normal dude that wants to play Magic just like everyone else here.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thanks so much for coming on this week.
Thanks for having me. I've met Phil a couple times, and I love seeing Phil because every time I see Phil, like when I first run into him at an event, he's doing the exact same thing. And usually,
is it trying to get a Terminus to flip?
No. So every time, I don't know why, but every time I see him, he's standing there talking to Bryant Cook about his 15th sideboard card. And you could just tell, like, from Bryant's face that this interaction has been going on for like
forever,
12 hours.
They're old friends. Yeah, they're old friends. So it's probably been going on for 12 years, actually.
And Brian will be like, Phil, oh my God, I don't care. Just play this card. This card is terrible or whatever. And then Phil, like stone-faced without missing a beat, will be like, so what do you think about this card? And I love it. I mean, the couple of times I've talked about, I've had a good time, and look forward to to seeing you and meeting you in person as well, and hopefully Eternal Weekend or
I will definitely try and make it out for Eternal Weekend. I'm working on that just now.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all the listeners and the community for your support. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. If you're watching this video and you've gotten this far, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment below, especially if you have any questions for Rob, and I'll pass those along as well. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody. Hey, I'm not sure if you heard me mention this before, but we just interviewed Reed Duke. You should check it out. A lot of cool information there. Reed was so much fun to hang out with. Have a good one, everybody.